Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? Hard to believe, y'all, but we are just a little more than a week away, finally, from the NFL draft. And the New Orleans Saints continue hosting their top 30 visits. We've explained this before, but just as a quick refresher for those that don't remember, each NFL team can host 30 prospects at their facility. So it's almost like an official visit, right, where you pay to fly them in, you wine and dine them, all that sort of stuff. You can do that with 30 prospects. So if a team uses a top 30 visit on you, it generally signals and signifies real sincere interest. Now, there's times where a team knows what they need to know about a prospect. They don't bring him in. One of the notable ones that we mentioned last week is Brandon Cooks. When he was drafted in the first round back in 2014 by the Saints, they didn't bring him in on top 30. They knew they had their guy, and they picked him. Sometimes you want to play coy and not let teams know that you're interested. But the three most recent prospects of reports that we've gotten that have come in are two receivers and an offensive lineman. The first is, well, the best receiver in the draft. Aaron Wilson had the report first that Tetairoa McMillan of Arizona, the number one wide receiver in this draft, took an official visit to the New Orleans Saints. By the way, Aaron Wilson from KPRC Channel 2. So had the report first that Tetairoa McMillan visiting the New Orleans Saints. A couple things about McMillan. We all know what he is, the number one receiver in the draft coming out of Arizona, 6'4", 219 pounds. One of the reasons I love the idea of McMillan is when you look at him physically, he has a different body and skill set than any of your other receivers. Like, that is a true issue, as I see it anyway, with the current makeup of that New Orleans Saints receiver room. Because we look at Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave and bringing back Brandon Cooks now, and you have a bunch of smallish wide receivers. Brandon Cooks, 5'10", 189. Chris Olave, 6', 187. Rashid Shaheed, 6', 180. They're all the same guy. They're the same guy. Tetairoa McMillan, 6'4", 219. He can fly. So yes, getting a different body style and skill set, check. Another thing that's worth mentioning about McMillan, with the Derek Carr news that he's likely going to be out for the year, the Saints have an interesting decision to make. Maybe they draft a quarterback high, but there are reports, including Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk, reporting that the Saints, expect to hear a report that the Saints reached out to Aaron Rodgers. There's also speculation that the Saints could reach out to the Atlanta Falcons about a potential deal for Kirk Cousins. Or if the Falcons were to cut Kirk Cousins, maybe the Saints go make a pass at him. Okay, I got my feelings about those in and of themselves, but if you're trying to attract Aaron Rodgers to sign with you over the Pittsburgh Steelers, having a true legit number one like Tetairoa McMillan would certainly be more enticing. He wants to go somewhere where he can have success. Well, you add a guy like McMillan with Olave and Shaheed and Alvin Kamara, and you re-sign Juwan Johnson. Now you're kind of making a case that could be a little more compelling, that you have a stocked cupboard of offensive weapons where he could have some success, just something to file away. The flip side of it is, why would you take a receiver at number 9 in what appears to be a very deep wide receiver draft class? And you could get great value with your second-round pick at number 40 or even in round 3. Like Trey Harris from Ole Miss, who was awesome before his hamstring injury this year, is a guy that you've seen mocked anywhere in mid, late second round or even into round 3. So if you tell me you can take McMillan at 9 or Trey Harris at 40 or in round 3, well, maybe it's you take the best available player at 9 and you get a great receiver in round 2. Just something to file away when thinking about how this may all play out. The other receiver that the New Orleans Saints brought in for one of the top 30s is Ty Felton. So Ty Felton is a receiver from Maryland. And the thing about Felton is that he can flat out fly. Tony Pauline is the one who first had the report about Ty Felton. I would show you this if you're watching, but there's a bajillion pop-ups, which is why some of these websites are awful. But anyway, the Saints are one of the teams that hosted, don't worry about play, are one of the teams that hosted Ty Felton. So what you need to know about Felton, similar body style to Shaheed and Cooks and Olave. He's 6'1", 183. Like, all these guys are basically the same guy. The differentiator is that he can flat out fly. He ran a 4.37 40 in this pre-draft process. And by the way, he also went to the Senior Bowl and showed out. Of course, the Saints coaching staff was involved at the Senior Bowl. We know the Saints have a great affinity for players that play at the Senior Bowl, and Ty Felton was there. So, again, small guy, great speed. That's Rashid Shaheed. I mean, that was Brandon Cooks, although Brandon Cooks is now 31 years old, coming off injury and reduced production. I don't know if he still has great speed. But if you're looking for day two value, this is a great example of it. When you look at projections for Ty Felton, guy who had 1,100 receiving yards last year, 96 catches for over 1,100 yards. He's been very durable as well. Super athlete, 39-inch vertical, 4.37 in the 40, broad jump 10 feet, shuttle 4.27. I mean, relative athletic score of 9.20. I'm telling you, you got the relative athletic score and a Senior Bowl? Can we get some dings here? There we go. Give me a double ding for that guy. He's got them both. So he's expected to be a day two guy. So if you go best available at 9, and that's not Tetairoa, McMillan, maybe someone like Felton can be a receiver that the Saints take a look at with one of their day two picks. There's just no shortage of receivers in this draft and what appears like value receiver picks on day two and even beyond. So as much as I would love to have Tetairoa, McMillan, a true legit number one receiver, and you need everything, I'm almost inclined to say take the best player at 9 at a position where you're not going to get that same positional value in round 2 or later. I think you can get great great receivers throughout this draft. And the third player that is taking an official visit, this was Schefter who had this report. Adam Schefter tweeted that Josh Simmons, the Ohio State offensive tackle, is visiting the New Orleans Saints today, Monday, and then heading to visit Arizona and the Cardinals on Tuesday. So Simmons is interesting for some obvious reasons. We all know the New Orleans Saints and their love of Ohio State players, so he gets a ding for Ohio State. He is, and listen, I know we joke about the Ohio State thing a lot, but just for some context, between 2016 and 2022, the New Orleans Saints drafted 5 Ohio State players. On top of that, they signed in free agency Chase Young, Bradley Roby, Eli Apple, and Ted Ginn. So, yes, they have had a strong pipeline and a strong affinity for players from that Ohio State program. So anytime you see a guy like this, it's going to be notable. Oh, by the way, he also was a guy with a pretty healthy relative athletic score as well. Just keep getting these dings and these check marks. 6'5", 317. He's a possible late first-round guy, but could be someone the Saints are looking at number 40. Okay, if he gets into round 2, that would be the target spot where you'd be looking at Simmons. And the other really interesting thing about him is in 2022, he was the starting right tackle. In 23 and 24, he was starting left tackle. So he could play either tackle spot. That gives you some versatility. I think the question is, are you okay with your current offensive line? Understanding that last year you drafted a left tackle in round 1. You got Trevor Penning at right tackle, who was a first-round pick. And then you went and signed Dylan Radins in free agency, who really could be your plug-and-play starter at left guard. Former second-round pick. Tennessee didn't sign him to a second contract, but has been a contributing player. He's not going to be a Pro Bowl caliber player, but a starting caliber player at left guard. Are you okay there? Usually, to find elite left tackles, you go at the top of round 1. You can find gems. I mean, Teron Armstead, who just announced his retirement from football, was a third-round pick. There are guys who you can find, starting left tackles later in the draft. Jermon Bushrod, certainly a great example of that as well, from the Super Bowl championship team. So the Saints have found guys at left tackle, starting left tackles outside of round 1. Pro Bowl left tackles outside of round 1. But usually to get those elite guys, you're going to get the Will Campbells at the top of round 1. So are you looking at a guy late round 1, early round 2 that potentially is a starting right tackle? Do you draft someone like Simmons to be your starter at right tackle and then you kick Trevor Penning inside? I think that's really a question that internally they got to answer are they confident moving into this season with Trevor Penning as the right tackle? This is going to be Trevor Penning's last season. Certainly, they're not going to pick up his fifth-year option, obviously. So this is his last year under contract. So do you go into this year looking to mold the replacement behind him in someone like Simmons potentially, knowing that if you do re-sign Penning, maybe he can move inside or Simmons can play inside, a lot of different options. But a 6'5", 317-pound dude, a massive guy who has played both sides of the line at tackle, athletic enough to play tackle. You could certainly kick him in and play guard if you needed to, but someone who you might find is a real value pick at number 40 in day 2 if he lasts that long. So 3 prospects that the Saints have added to their top 30 visit list: Ted McMillan, Ty Felton, and Josh Simmons. We are a little more than a week away from the start of the NFL draft. Of course, we'll have it all covered for you here on AFR. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.